Hey guys, I wanted to make a video today about how to crochet into ribbing. This will apply to any project that you are doing that requires you to make a long strip of ribbing before you make the rest of the project, and you then crochet the body of your work into the strip of ribbing that you made. There are a lot of patterns that will simply tell you make X amount of rows of ribbing and then turn your work and work into the side. Seems pretty intuitive, but if you've never done it before, it can be a little challenging. I tried a few different methods and I found one that I really liked that I felt did not stretch out the end of my rows and gave me really pretty and even results. So I'm going to show you guys how I do that now. I'm also going to show you the way that I was doing it that I now realize is not my favorite. So you can kind of see maybe you like the other way. I can show you both options and you can choose for yourself which way you think is the best. Okay, so first I'm going to show you swatches of both ways that I have crocheted into the ends of my ribbing. So the first way looks like this. The end of my ribbing is right here, and then I've just done like a couple of rows of half double crochets at the top. This is I think this is the right side. That's the right side. So this is option 1. This is option 2. The end of my ribbing is here, and again, I just have some half double crochets at the top. So here they are side by side, and you can see the difference here and here with where I crocheted into the very end of my row. In my opinion, this is not very clean. It's a lot of gapping in uneven spaces versus here where everything is very uniform. It goes right into the next row of stitching in a way that is very fluid, in my opinion, and it looks really good on both sides. Okay, so to illustrate how I do this, I've put several different stitch markers in here. I made this ribbing swatch yesterday. I used just like a random skein of yarn that I had laying around, but I made sure that I used a bigger hook size so that hopefully you guys will be able to see these stitches a little bit better. So when you're making your ribbing, and you're going back and forth as such, you then turn your work once you get to the end and you start working along the top. So when you're making ribbing, most people, if you're unaware of how to make ribbing, this video isn't going to get into that. So I would maybe watch a video about making ribbing first and then come back. But most people use the back loop only technique. And at the end of your rows, that leaves you with this one singular piece of yarn, which is, I believe, the front loop of your last stitch, I guess. So I've got that tagged here with my green stitch marker. Then in your next row of ribbing, you will have your, I'll move down here where my markers are, sorry. This is the first stitch in my new row. And then in the middle, between my last stitch of my last row and my first stitch of my new row, there is my turning chain. Now, when I was doing my older method, the one that I think has too many gaps, I was stitching into this single piece of yarn here, the last stitch of my previous row, and then into the first stitch of my new row. That is the most intuitive way that I was able to read patterns at the time that I started doing this. Maybe this is common knowledge to everybody else, but I just discovered this last night. So here in the middle, like I said, your turning chain, this was just kind of getting skipped, and I was ending up with the appropriate number of stitches, but I just really did not like the way that that gap appeared from this less sturdy single piece of yarn. I really wanted a more clean and polished look, and I also wanted the integrity of the garment to be a little more reliable. Based on different yarns, the way things drape, what kind of garment it is, you might have more tension on the ribbing than you anticipate. And when you have this less supportive, just one piece of yarn, over time, that can really stretch out and make the end of your garment unattractive. So rather than stitching here, I started stitching into the turning chain and the first stitch of my new row. So I am technically skipping my entire row here that ends with this single loop. When I'm making ribbing, I refer to the different rows as hills and valleys. So I will be doing that throughout the rest of this video, but this single piece of yarn is at the end of your valley row. So I will show you a couple stitches with stitching into the valley, and then I will show you a couple of stitches stitching into the turning chain and first stitch of the new row. Okay, so we're going to chain one, and then we're going to go, I guess I'll do a half double crochet just so you guys can see it better. So we're going to go into that valley row with the single piece of yarn at the end, and then I just went into the first stitch of my new row, and then I'm going to repeat that. And we'll do one more repeat, just so you can kind of see maybe like a half and half. Okay, so now I'm going to switch to the method where technically, I guess this might be considered doing 2 stitches at the end of my hill row, rather than a stitch in the valley row and a stitch in the hill row. So I'm going to look at my stitch here, and I really hope you guys can see this, but there is a little bar in between my turning chain and my first stitch of the row. And I'm going to stitch right in the middle. So to the right of that little bar under my turning chain. And then I'm going to go to the other side of the bar into the first stitch of the row. And now I am completely skipping this single piece of yarn here at the end of my valley row. That is technically the last stitch of the row. That is where most patterns led me to believe I should be stitching. However, I am not going to do that. So we're going to find our bar in our stitch. We're going to go into the turning chain and into the first stitch. I apologize if you guys hear Pancake. She is really wound up today. Same thing here. And our final one, I'm going to go just into that first stitch. All right, so here at the beginning, we started going into that last stitch where there was just the single piece of thread. As you can see, it gaps pretty easily. I'm putting very little tension into pulling on this, and it is just stretching straight out. Then at the end here, gosh, like you can even see there's like a hump here where this is just so much more stretched. Here, where we were going into the turning chain and then into the first stitch, you can really see a difference that this is just so even. It's so pretty. There's that single piece of thread that we were skipping. And now instead of getting pulled on and stretching out, it is tucked down underneath this stitch here. And the whole top of our garment is going to be well supported, and it's going to have equal tension across each stitch at the end of our row. So that is how I've been doing my ribbing now. I will go grab my piece that I'm currently working on, and I will show you what that looks like after several rows, and I guess just a better representation than this little swatch. Okay, here is my current work in progress. This is the Happy at Home hoodie by Evelyn and Peter. I will put a link to that pattern in my description because it is super cute. It's a free pattern and I love it. So here you can see, obviously I've got my ribbing at the bottom, and the connection between where my new rows for the body of the piece and the ribbing are so fluid. Look at how nice that looks. It's so even, there's no gaps. The drape is going to be really nice once it's blocked and washed and worn. And I'm just really pleased with how this is turning out now. I don't have to worry about it getting all stretched out as I continue to go back and forth in my rows across the top. So that is what that looks like on a current work in progress. If you guys have any questions, please feel free to leave them in the comments. I am not a professional YouTube video maker. I'm not even a professional crocheter. So I just wanted to make this video to help out any other beginners who might not be able to find answers to those questions that seem so simple, but are very elusive and challenging for those of us who are just getting started. I hope this helps you guys. Quick correction, I said that the Happy at Home hoodie was made by Evelyn and Peter. It is Evelyn and Peter. If you can't tell, my 8-year-old is very interested in Spider-Man, and Peter and Peter go together in my brain. So the maker of this pattern is Evelyn and Peter. And again, I'll put a link to that down in the description because her blog is really good and I really love this particular item. I've made probably 4 of these now. So definitely check it out and make one and let me see what you come up with at the end.